podcast you're about to hear will inspire, innovate, give you insight, and take you on the wings of leadership. This is why we call it the I3L. Inspiration, innovation, insight, and leadership. Get ready to embark on the journey to greatness with Kayode Okuta.
Welcome to Next Year Podcast. This one podcast that wants to give you inspiration, influence, innovation, and tools to make you win in the 21st century. The 21st century has changed the rules of the game. What it takes to achieve and be successful has so much been altered that if you were just born in the last 15 years, you would think people were speaking scientific fiction. As the realities of success changes, it's important that we get people up to speed about what needs to be done to be successful in the 21st century. Social media, the internet, in fact, technology and innovation has kept redefining the landscape. So next year is just a tool and expression by which people new to leadership or people in leadership needs a new set of tools can be equipped to be successful by gaining insight, by gaining innovation and inspiration to become better leaders. There's an old man who was in the competition with a young man, and they were in the forest about how many trees they could fell. And after a while, the young man always noticed that the old man would always go to the back and he would stay at a secluded place for a while, and after that he would not come back, and when he comes back he comes to continue. And the young man noticed that the old man was always doing better. So after the finish, he now asked the old man, "Why did you succeed in felling more trees than I did?" Then the old man said, "Look, you know what? I would always go back to sharpen my tools. You know, the tools that you have will determine the results that you have. So you must learn the tools to be successful in the 21st century." It's my belief that next year podcast will give you the technologies, the tools and insights that will aid anyone in your leadership journey. We consistently ask ourselves, and you know, the question I think that our generation is asking is, and that's the big cry, that's why we're starting today, what are the tools? What are the things that you and I need to imbibe so that we can be increasing in value? Because we're living in an era of breakneck speed, and these changes that are taking place are so tremendous that if you're not careful, instead of surviving, you would actually be swallowed. Now, listen to what I'm going to tell you. In the first agrarian society, those that knew how to build irrigation or alternative water source, they won the battle. In the industrial revolution, people that had education succeeded. I mean, people that all you needed to do was go to school or go to Harvard, probably be on top. But today, if you do that, it probably will not make a difference in your life. And in the post-industrial revolution of beat and oil, now we're having new sets of tools that we can and we would use to succeed. So since things have changed, but not all things have changed, some things have changed, not all things have changed. I mean, there's still unchanging principles, and there's still principles that have changed. The question we have to ask ourselves is, how do we make better leaders? How do we make leaders better? So we can ask ourselves, how do we make better leaders? We can ask ourselves, how do we make leaders better? And more importantly, how do we increasingly make exceptional leaders? Because now, if we make leaders better, if we make better leaders, and we make increasing exceptional leaders, then the organizations, our society, our families will be better. Now, when I'm talking about leadership, I'm talking about leadership because the families need leadership, schools need leadership, universities need leadership, churches or mosques need leadership, organizations, not-for-profit, they all need leadership. I mean, even in Nigeria, we know that the country needs leadership. Now, the question is, what is the great cry of leadership? Now, if you look around, because of the way things are changing, if you look around, if you notice how things are evolving, if you look around, if you notice how things that used to be keys to success before have changed and been altered so much, then you have to ask yourself that who is the leader? You understand? Who is the leader? Now, when I started doing this, there was a training I had for some young people recently, and I asked them and I told them, I said, when people my age were growing up, they told us they said education was the key to success. And by the time we finished, we now realized that the padlock was missing. And there was no way to, education did not open any key because we didn't even see the padlock. Now, the question is, what do I tell a young person? What do I tell a young person is the key to success? These and other questions are the things that next year podcast would answer for you. And so it's important that you make it a part of your daily or your weekly recipe, because we're going to be a weekly podcast, a weekly recipe, so that you would always become a better person. Don't forget that we're going to ask ourselves, how do we make leaders better? How do we make better leaders? And how do we make increasingly exceptional leaders? Now, you would ask me, why are we starting with the big cry today? Now, the big cry is that because of the force of change or the pace of change happening in the world today, the leader is the person who answers the first or the major question that is in their heart or in the lips of a lot of people or the majority of the people. And you ask, what's the question? The question is very simple, because things are changing so fast. Nothing is given, nothing is certain any longer. So the leader is the person that's going to ask, is going to answer the question, what do we need to do to be saved? Now, that's the question everyone is asking. The leader is the one who answers that question. So the big cry is, what do we need to be saved? In the 21st century, what do we need to be saved? What do we need to be saved? Now, to be saved is not just to survive. To be saved is to try, because if you survive, you're not necessarily saved. But you must also thrive. So what are the things that needs for you to do for you to not only survive, but to also thrive? Now, that is the answer that the exceptional leader must solve. The exceptional leader must be someone in the house. You understand? Like a parent. The parent can ask, what do we need to be saved as a family? Because when some of us were growing up, we were using slates. You were using slates to go to school, but today we're using iPads to teach our children. So you have to ask yourselves, that what do you need to be saved in this kind of situation? It's not just slates, it's iPads. You got to ask yourself, what do we need to be saved? Now, or schools or individuals or even organizations. Recently we heard that GE was having a big problem, and industrial colossus, a mighty organization having issues, would tell you that the leader must answer this question: what do we need to be saved? It's the age-old question that only a leader can step forward and answer. So when the cry comes, what do we need to be saved in an organization, in a company? What do we need to be saved? The rate of change is so difficult, it's so fast. Then the person who answers that question is the leader. So if you are answering that question, what do we need to be saved, then in that organization, then you are the leader. Why do we concerned about this kind of question? Number one, the terrain that most social interactions occur is not only uncertain, it's probably unforgiving, and it's unprecedented, and in some cases unstable. Some people call it violent, unstable environment. You understand? Now this environment is so difficult to do normal kind of business, and here you have to not only survive, you have to thrive. So, and the fundamentals of some of these things have changed. But every time I said to people all the time that in times of certainty, you do not need leaders. In times of uncertainty, you need leaders. And in times of great uncertainty, you will need exceptional leaders, because now we're living in uncertain times. Fundamentals are changing. How do you survive, not only succeed? So what do we need to do to be saved when things are happening so fast? That is the job of a leader. So exceptional leaders will drive the quest for exceptional results in exceptional circumstances, especially when those circumstances are changing circumstances. Now, the second thing why the big cry is very important is that the inability to use familiar tools that has enabled us to achieve success in the past has become imperative. Now, listen, most times, even those that went to business school probably will hear about industries this industry, you can compete in certain industries, or what are the things to do in industries. Now, we are taught strategies in certain industries. What about in industries that are changing? For instance, Apple is in the wristwatch industry. So what are you going to do with that? Or the fact that Apple is in the music industry, and when you ask them, they say they're a hardware company, but they're in different industries. They are altering the landscape of industries. So you probably do not think that industries are just one static thing, or that industries have become cross-functional, as it were. So the inability to understand that some of the tools that really helped in the past is not working or will not work now, it's important. And now, but we are not preparing people, and that's the reason why we need a tool like the Next Year podcast that's going to help you. Now, if you ask me what are the fundamentals that have changed, I mean, when you went to school, you probably learned the forces of production or the factors of production, and they would say, oh, you would use land. And the question is, what land does Airbnb have? What land does Facebook have to become the biggest media company? Airbnb to become the biggest hospitality company in the world? What land does Uber have to become the biggest taxi company? They probably have no taxi. So everything is changing. So the interaction is changing, and the interaction is changing. But we are not learning as fast. Or those people, or the things you've learned 10 years ago have become so outdated that if you're using outdated tools for this time, you're probably not going to win. You're never going to survive. And the reality is that good enough is not good enough for the 21st century. Good enough is not good enough. Good enough used to be enough to play, but today, big enough is not good enough. So big cry. The big cry now comes, how do we need to be saved in all this turbulence? How do we navigate the terrain that you don't even know? The terrain that is unknown, you understand? I mean, it's like Mango Park who came to find out how the River Niger was. He didn't know the terrain, so you got to navigate the terrain that is unknown, and it needs a new kind of skill to be able to win. So in order to understand that, we need to be clear about the fact that organizations, and by extension, leadership, are separated by beliefs, by values and assumptions. So exceptional leaders are the people that will possess the ideas, the values and assumptions, not only to bring value to the table for the organization or for the team they lead, but they also have the capacity to build agile, nimble and resilient social interactions that can answer to the big cry that, yes, what I'm doing to be saved, you understand? It's not just about, you just have to be able to answer those questions. So exceptional leader will add value not only to you, but your team and to your organizations, and will win. So the big cry is, what do we need to be saved? What the big cry is, what do we need to raise up great families? The big cry is, what do we need to be saved so that our families will not be destroyed? The big cry is, what do we need to be saved? That our schools will be saved. That our schools will be saved does not only mean that they're going to survive, they're also going to thrive. What do we need to do so that our country will be saved? You understand? I mean, we're going forward to a presidential election very soon. So what do we need to do to be saved? Those are the questions that leadership is asking, or people are asking, and leaders are the ones who will step up and say, okay, we're going to answer this question. We know what to do. We know what to do for this organization, this interaction, this social gathering, or this group, or this team to survive. And we know what to do, not only just to, like I said, not just to survive, but also to thrive, because survival is just not the name of the game. You must thrive in uncertain terrain. So Next Year is your tool. So I invite you to make it a part of your learning process, your empowerment process. I invite you to understand what it is. I invite you to come and join us and go through this together. And together, I believe that we all and our world will be different, because we're a better leader. How do we make leaders better? How do we make better leaders? And how do we increasingly make exceptional leaders, which we believe you would be one? Have a great week. God bless you. My name is Kayode Oguta.